Hi everyone, I'm Craig Inglis. It's great to be here. Welcome to my kitchen, and a quick intro from me. Until very recently I was Customer Director at John Lewis. I was there for about 12 years or so, and I led johnlewis.com and all of the digital channels, as well as customer experience, marketing and communications. I'm also chairman of the Marketing Society, and I've been doing that for a couple of years. Apart from that, I've got 4 kids aged from 1 to 18, so they keep me very busy indeed. So I'm going to spend the next 10 minutes or so just giving you my thoughts on how retailers have been affected by the coronavirus pandemic, how brands have responded, and really what it all means for the future in terms of the challenges that brands will face, and perhaps more importantly, the opportunities that might exist in the future. A very quick caveat though, these are tumultuous, unpredictable times, and I don't have a crystal ball, so I don't have all the answers, but I do hope to give you some food for thought. Okay, so I want to start by just reflecting quickly on the impact of the pandemic on the retail sector. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, as I suspect you're only too aware of the impact, but it's so significant that it deserves dwelling on just a little. So I've got a few quick charts here that I think help bring it all to life. Now, this first chart shows only too starkly the impact on retail sales, and the saying that a picture is worth 1,000 words couldn't be more appropriate here. And as you can see, retail sales dropped dramatically from February this year by 13% in the 3 months to May, the lowest since records began. On the next chart, you can see there were some signs of a partial bounce back in May with a 12% uptick as some shops started to reopen. But as you can see, sales don't recover fully from the huge falls seen in March and April. In terms of other key trends, we saw a huge swing to digital channels during this same period. Something that of course was already happening before the pandemic struck. But over the last 3 months, we've seen growth of 24% versus last year. And there are no signs of that abating, with May 21% up on April. And both stats are the highest on record. So, and as you can see from the final slide, that movement has been happening across all retail sectors. In fact, online sales as a proportion of all retail reached a record high of 33% in May, and that beat the previous record of 31%, which was set in April. In terms of the rest of the year, the forecasts of course vary, but organisations like PwC are currently projecting our GDP to decline by 5 to 10% compared to last year. And that's significantly worse than the contraction that we saw during the 2008 financial crisis. So whilst it's an overused word, the numbers tell us that these really have been unprecedented times in retail. And that's a pretty grim picture for an industry that was already facing significant structural change. So there will of course be some casualties, and indeed sadly there have been some just in recent days. But like all crises, there are others who will find the opportunities and seize them. And I think the clues for how to grasp those opportunities lie with the most important people in all of this, our customers. Now, whilst this is on a much bigger scale, there are clues from previous crises like the financial crash or from 9/11. In those moments, the anchor points that consumers have are savagely taken away, and that can cause them to reel. Everything that was the norm is no longer the norm, and that can be incredibly unsettling for consumers. It directly challenges beliefs about who they can trust. You just think about when people queued around the block to remove their life savings from what were the much trusted banks and put it under the mattress instead. None of us would have previously believed that that was possible. Now, this crisis is just like that, but magnified many, many times over. So what does that mean for consumers and brands in retail? Well, I believe that whilst confidence is low, consumers will still want to buy. And what I saw in 2008 when I just joined John Lewis, I think will be repeated in that consumers will become more demanding, they become more discerning and more considerate about what they buy and who they buy it from. In other words, they still want to buy, but they want to buy well. To add to that, as you can see from this chart from PricewaterhouseCoopers, some of the changed behaviours that we all experienced as a consequence of lockdown look likely to stick. Things like making do and mending, signing up to subscriptions for our essentials, buying from brands who look after their people, or just doing lots more of everything online, including shopping. Now that obviously has implications for retail brands, both for the short and for the longer term. So taking the short term first, the behaviour of brands today is incredibly important to their success tomorrow. And that's both in terms of what they say and most importantly, what they do. So let's take each of those in turn. Now, in terms of what they do, consumers will get behind brands that do the right thing by them, by their employees, and by the broader communities that they are part of. There's been lots of examples of this over the last few months, with some brands focused on feeding the nation, or on converting their operations to make PPE or ventilators, focused on protecting jobs, or on just giving more to their communities. The important thing is that just can't be a flash in the pan. It's got to be built on and become part of the way that brands consistently behave if they want to succeed. In terms of what they say, rather than just talking at them, consumers will support the brands, I think, that genuinely connect with them, honestly, authentically, and with humanity and warmth. In other words, on an emotional rather than a functional level. Now again, I've seen many more examples of this over the last few months, and you shouldn't be fooled into thinking though that telling stories in this way is in some way self-indulgent when sales are in decline and business resources are under duress, because quite the opposite is true. And I'm sure many of you in the audience know this, but there's a long history of evidence over many, many decades now that demonstrates that investing in brand building marketing during a recession will not only drive commercial benefit in the short term, it will also ensure that you come out the other side much stronger with sales and share gains whilst others stumble. And if that isn't enough, at maybe a more basic level, just look at the incredible value that advertising offers right now. Despite the evidence I've just mentioned, many brands have paused campaigns over the last few months, and as a result, prices across most media channels have fallen in line with that. At the same time, we're all consuming more media, we're at home more, so audiences have increased for almost all channels. Radio channels are reporting double-digit audience growth. TV viewership's up and news media consumption is reaching record levels. And this combination of lower prices and greater reach means that there's just great value to be had out there. And the brands that choose to invest in marketing at this time will see significant increases in their share of voice that will drive up their ROIs and ultimately market share. But beyond the numbers, on a much more human level, I would argue that if you create brilliant, resonant, emotionally impactful campaigns at this time, then they are likely to be more effective than ever. Because not only are we more likely to listen because we're consuming more media, but the pandemic has been a massive jolt to the system. It's an inflection point which has caused us all to step back and be more thoughtful about what really matters in our lives. And I have no doubt that the brands that can connect with that sentiment and do so authentically will reap the benefits, both in the short and the long term. Now, talking of the long term and thinking maybe more broadly about what this all means for retailers, this is an inflection point for businesses too. The pandemic, I think, gives leaders a rare opportunity to step back and reflect on what it is that their business is really about, what makes it different, what it stands for, and a chance to really rethink the business that we are, if you like, and to grab new opportunities. It's also an opportunity to take the tough decisions that perhaps you've been putting in the too difficult pile and embrace the trends we were already seeing, but that have been accelerated by the coronavirus. And this slide here shows the 6 things that I think retailers should be giving most thought to ensure that businesses are successful for the long term. So starting with digital. This, to my mind, is by far and away the most important. And the question to ask yourself is, are you truly embracing the opportunity offered by digital? And if not, what will it take to do so? All retailers should really have been addressing this question many years ago, but the reality is many haven't, despite the relentless growth we've seen over the last decade. And as we saw earlier, the pandemic has turbocharged that trend to the point it's no longer a question of how or when, it's a question of survival or not. It's a huge opportunity, of course, to open up new channels of growth, but it requires a re-engineering of every part of your business to succeed. And now's the time to embrace that fully. Reinvention. If your historic market is maturing, competition's intensifying, or the margins just aren't there anymore, now's the time to take the steps to reinvent your business. That means giving yourself the space and time to think strategically, but it also means creating a culture where innovation and creativity thrive. Doing that successfully means being prepared to rethink and potentially restructure your business. It means embracing agile working, creating new capabilities, and changing how you harness your best talent to embed a culture of innovation and creativity. And in my experience, this is really hard yards to land, but it's likely to be essential for many retailers over the coming months. Just carrying on doing what you do today is unlikely to drive future success, I'm afraid. Sustainability. Tackling the challenges and harnessing the opportunities offered by sustainability is huge, and lockdown has caused us all to change our habits, particularly around travel and consumption of goods, and the environment has benefited from that. The question for retailers is, what opportunity does this offer for the longer term? This was already a growing consumer trend, and it's only likely to accelerate after the virus. I have no doubt that the retailers that are able to meet that need with creative, authentic propositions that allow customers to have great products, but which minimize the impact on the planet, will achieve great commercial success. Right sizing. Retailers should use this moment to think really carefully about the optimum shape of their business. This is partly about taking tough cost decisions, of course, but not in a blunt way, simply to improve short-term profitability. Rather, this is about thinking deeply about what is no longer needed in your business, removing those costs, and investing in the capabilities that you need and the customer propositions that you want to create. For many traditional retailers, that will include a difficult conversation about reducing the amount of physical space that they have and diverting investment into their digital operations and into reimagining the shops they decide to keep. Moving to collaboration now, when facing the scale of challenge that we now are, the brands that succeed, I think, will be prepared to think much more creatively about who they partner with in order to deliver their propositions. Now, that could be in terms of securing a more flexible, more robust supply chain. It could be in creating new routes to market. It could be product collaborations that take the best of two brands, or creating more imaginative customer propositions and experiences. But whatever it is, retailers should shake off any of the taboos of the past and just be prepared to work together to deliver mutual benefit. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, brand purpose. This last few months has seen an acceleration in a trend that, again, was already happening, where consumers will actively choose brands that have a purpose beyond just making money. According to PwC, in the last few months, 1 in 5 of us have bought more from brands supporting the NHS or the vulnerable, with almost the same again buying more from brands that look after their employees. And that shouldn't just be forgotten now we're starting to come out of lockdown. It's an opportunity for retailers to build on the good work they've done, to reinforce what they stand for, and to create a differentiated proposition that resonates with their customers and builds their advocacy and loyalty. But a word of warning, This isn't about advertising or simply just creating a veneer on top. It's about building something that means something to customers and employees, that's rooted in a truth about your business. And to do that, it's got to run deep and touch every part of what you do. So to wrap up then, there's no doubt that what we've all been living through has been an incredibly difficult time, and that retailers who were already being hard hit by a huge structural change in the industry have been disproportionately impacted. However, they are also extraordinary times, and that's given retailers a rare and perhaps much needed opportunity to step away from the relentlessness of the day-to-day, to think carefully about who they are, what matters to their customers, and what business they could be in the future. Now, there's not only something quite cathartic about that, but it's also an exciting opportunity to create your next successful chapter. So thanks for listening. I hope it was helpful. All the very, very best, and stay safe. Thank you very much.